My name's Lauren, 32, from a small town outside Raleigh, North Carolina, where the summers are humid and the community's tight-knit, at least on the surface. 2 months ago, my life flipped upside down when a random stock investment I made years ago skyrocketed, turning a modest $500 bet into a $3 million windfall. I never imagined I'd be the one to strike it rich. But when my parents and my older brother, Ethan, the family's golden boy, demanded I share the wealth, things got messy fast. The real shock came when I caught my parents trying to sabotage my payout by tampering with my financial documents. Their stunned faces when I laughed it off, priceless. Before I dive into why I wasn't fazed, I'd love to know where you're watching this from. Write it in the comments below. If my story hits home, give it a like and consider subscribing to follow along. It really helps keep these stories coming. Now let's get into it. Growing up in our working-class neighborhood, life was comfortable but never lavish. My parents ran a small hardware store, and we lived in a modest house with a creaky porch and a backyard just big enough for a rusty swing set. Ethan, 4 years older, was the star of the family from the moment he could kick a soccer ball. His trophies lined the living room shelves, while my debate team medals got tucked away in a drawer. It wasn't that my parents were cruel. They made sure we had food, clothes, and a roof, but Ethan was their pride and joy. When he wanted new cleats, they scraped together the cash. When I needed books for my AP classes, I babysat neighbors' kids to cover the cost. Ethan's soccer games were family events. My academic wins got a pat on the back and a "That's nice, Lauren." I don't want to paint them as villains. They showed up to my graduations and cheered. But the scales always tipped toward Ethan. By the time I was in my late 20s, I'd carved out a solid life for myself. I worked as a project manager for a tech startup in Raleigh, lived in a cozy studio apartment, and had enough savings for the occasional weekend getaway. Student loans still loomed over me, $55,000 and counting, but I was proud of standing on my own 2 feet. Ethan, meanwhile, had drifted through a string of failed ventures, a gym that tanked, a food truck that never got off the ground, and a short-lived stint as a consultant that nobody could quite define. My parents always bailed him out, dipping into their savings or taking out loans to keep his dreams alive. Me? I paid my way through college with scholarships and late-night diner shifts. The day everything changed started. Like any other, I was grabbing coffee at a gas station near my office, mentally budgeting for the week, when I got an email alert from my old investment app. I'd almost forgotten about the $500 I'd tossed into a tech startup stock 5 years ago on a whim. After reading about it online, the email said the company had been acquired, and my shares were now worth $3 million. I stood frozen in the gas station, coffee cup in hand, rereading the numbers. My heart raced as I logged into the app to confirm. It was real. I called my best friend Mia from the parking lot, barely coherent. "You need to see this," I stammered. "I think I'm a millionaire." Mia rushed over to my apartment that night, her eyes wide as I showed her the account screenshot. "Lauren, this is insane," she said, double-checking the figures. "Is this legit?" I was too stunned to answer. We stayed up until 2 a.m., laughing, crying, and dreaming about what this could mean. Pay off my loans? Buy a house? Travel to Italy like I'd always wanted? The possibilities felt endless. The next day, I contacted a financial advisor through the investment platform. She confirmed the payout process. After taxes, I'd net about $1.8 million deposited within 3 weeks. She urged me to keep it quiet until the funds cleared to avoid unwanted attention. I nodded, but deep down, I felt compelled to tell my family. They were my parents after all, and Ethan was still my brother, despite our rocky dynamic. Plus, a small, petty part of me wanted them to see I'd made it big without their help. I decided to break the news at our monthly family barbecue, a tradition we kept despite the underlying tensions. That Sunday, I arrived at my parents' house, with a nervous buzz in my chest, helping my mom prep coleslaw while dodging her questions about my good mood. My dad was outside firing up the grill, and Ethan rolled in late, as usual, with a charming grin and a 6-pack of beer. Over dinner, I took a deep breath and spilled it. "I've got some news," I said, my voice shaky. That tech stock I bought years ago, it blew up. I'm getting $3 million. The table went silent. My mom's fork hovered midair, and my dad's eyebrows shot up. Ethan let out a low whistle. 3 million.
He repeated, leaning forward. Holy crap, Lauren.
My mom recovered first, pulling me into a rare hug. That's incredible, honey. But the moment didn't last. My dad cleared his throat. This is perfect timing. Ethan's been working on a new business idea, and a little seed money could really get it going. Ethan nodded eagerly. Yeah, I'm launching a craft brewery. It's a solid plan, but I need about $100,000 to get started. My stomach twisted. Not one question about what this meant for me, no curiosity about my plans or dreams. Just an immediate jump to how my money could fix Ethan's latest scheme. I haven't even gotten the funds yet, I said cautiously. There's a process, and I need to meet with my advisor to figure things out. My mom's smile tightened. Of course, but family helps family, Lauren. Ethan's got a real shot this time. Ethan chimed in. I'm not asking for a handout. Think of it as an investment. You'd get a cut of the profits. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. I haven't decided anything yet. This is all new, and I need time to think. My dad's tone hardened. What's there to think about? Your brother's got a vision. You've got the means to make it happen. The rest of the dinner was a blur of guilt trips and subtle jabs. Don't be selfish, Lauren, my mom said softly, as if I was betraying them by hesitating. Ethan played the wounded card. If I had that kind of money, I'd share it with you in a heartbeat. I left that night feeling like the joy of my windfall had been sucked dry. If you've ever had to navigate family expectations like this, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Drop your story in the comments. Hit that like button if this resonates, and subscribe for more of this journey. It's about to get wilder. The morning after that tense family barbecue, my phone lit up at 6:45 a.m. with a call from my mom. I was barely awake, fumbling for coffee, when her voice came through, sharp and urgent. Lauren, we need to talk about last night. I know you're still processing, but Ethan's brewery idea is a big deal. You could really set him up for success. I rubbed my eyes, a headache already forming. Mom, it's not even 7 a.m. Can this wait? I'm heading to work soon, she pressed on, undeterred. This is important, honey. Family supports each other. You know how hard Ethan's been trying. I muttered something about needing time and hung up, silencing my phone. I wasn't ready for round 2 of their campaign. At my tech startup job, I kept my windfall under wraps. The funds weren't in my account yet, and I didn't want coworkers prying. During my lunch break, I stepped outside to clear my head and checked my phone. 4 missed calls, 2 from my dad, 1 from my mom, and 1 from Ethan. A text from Ethan popped up. Hey sis, no pressure, but I put together a business plan for the brewery. Can I send it over? It's a sure thing, and $100,000 would seal the deal. Love ya. The casual tone didn't mask the expectation, and that love ya felt like a calculated nudge. I didn't reply. Instead, I scheduled a meeting with my financial advisor, Ms. Carter, for the next day to get a grip on my options. That evening, I got home to my studio apartment, poured a glass of cheap Merlot, and called Mia. They're relentless, I told her, recounting the barbecue and the morning's calls. Not one of them asked what I want to do with the money. It's all about Ethan's next big idea. Mia sighed through the phone. They've always put him first. I'm not shocked, but I'm pissed for you. What's your plan? I took a sip of wine, staring at the city lights through my window. Stick to my guns. Pay off my loans, buy a house, maybe travel, and definitely set some boundaries with them. Mia laughed. Good luck enforcing those. Your family doesn't exactly respect no. She wasn't wrong. The next day, I met Miss Carter at her office in downtown Raleigh. She was calm and professional, walking me through the numbers. After taxes, my $3 million would be about $1.8 million, a life-changing sum, but not infinite. First, clear high interest debt like your student loans, she advised. Then set up an emergency fund and diversify investments for long-term growth. When I mentioned my family's pressure, her expression turned serious. Sudden wealth brings out strong reactions. Set clear boundaries now, or you'll be fighting these battles forever. If you choose to help family, make it a one-time gift. With legal documentation. I left her office with a rough financial plan and a renewed sense of control. But I knew my family wouldn't back off easily. That night, I got a group text from my dad, copied to my mom and Ethan. Lauren, we're meeting at our house tomorrow at 6 p.m. to discuss how your windfall can benefit the family. Bring any paperwork you've got so we can understand the timeline. The nerve of them planning my finances without asking me floored me. I replied, short and firm, I'm not coming. My money, my decisions. The response was swift. My dad called. And when I let it go to voicemail, his message was icy. Lauren, this is selfish. We raised you to put family first. Call us back so we can sort this out. Ethan texted separately, his tone softer but still manipulative. I know you're overwhelmed, but my brewery could be huge for all of us. Just $100,000 and I'll pay you. Back with interest. I'm your brother, don't shut me out. I didn't respond to either. Instead, I focused on work and met with the investment firm again to finalize my choice to take the lump sum payout. They confirmed the funds would hit my account in about 2 weeks and set up a small press event to announce the windfall, complete with a cheesy oversized check for photos. The advisor reiterated her warning. Keep this quiet until the money's secure. You'd be surprised how many friends come out of the woodwork. I nodded, but the weight of my family's expectations was already heavier than any strangers. After the press event, I stopped by a bank to open a secure account for the funds and rented a safe deposit box for my investment documents. I wasn't taking any chances. When I got back to my apartment that evening, I spotted my parents' car parked outside. My stomach sank. I considered driving past, but they'd already seen me. I parked and walked over, bracing myself. We need to talk, my dad said, stepping out of the car with my mom and Ethan in tow. You're avoiding us, so we came to you. I glanced at my neighbor's windows, not wanting a scene. Fine, but this changes nothing. Come inside. In my cramped living room, the air was thick with tension. My mom scanned my cluttered apartment with a judgmental frown, while my dad stood with his arms crossed like he was about to lecture. A teenager. Ethan slouched on my couch, trying to look casual but clearly on edge. This has gone far enough, my dad started. You've had your moment to process, and now it's time to talk about how this money helps the family. My mom jumped in. Ethan's brewery needs $100,000 to get off the ground. That's nothing compared to what you're getting. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm focusing on my own future first, my loans, a house, retirement. I've worked hard to get here, and I deserve to prioritize myself. My dad scoffed. Prioritize yourself? You're sitting on millions and you're whining about student loans? Ethan's got a real shot at something big. Ethan leaned forward, his voice smooth. Lauren, I just need a boost. $100,000 and I'll make it work. You'd be investing in the family. I couldn't hold back the frustration anymore. Investing in the family? Where was that when I was working 2 jobs to pay for school? Or when I needed help with rent during my internship? You've always bankrolled Ethan's dreams, but I've been on my own. My mom's face softened, but her words stung. Don't be dramatic, Lauren. Ethan's had a tougher road. You've always been so independent. The argument dragged on for nearly an hour, a cycle of guilt, demands, and deflections. Ethan swore this brewery was different from his past failures. My parents insisted family meant sacrifice, conveniently ignoring their lopsided support.
Exhausted, I finally
Cut them off. I've made my decision. I'm not funding Ethan's brewery. You need to leave. My dad's eyes narrowed. If you're going to be this selfish, don't expect us to keep treating you like family. The threat hit hard, but I held firm. If family means bullying me into giving up my security, maybe that's not the family I need. They left. In a huff, Ethan muttering about how I'd regret this, I sank onto my couch, shaken but strangely empowered. I'd spent my life accommodating their expectations, but this time I'd stood my ground. I called Mia, my voice trembling as I recounted the confrontation. They showed up like they own me, I said. I'm done letting them guilt trip me. Mia's voice was fierce. Good for you. They don't get to dictate your life anymore. I knew she was right, but I also knew this wasn't the end. My family wasn't going to let $1.8 million slip through their fingers without a fight. The confrontation in my apartment left me rattled, but I refused to let it derail me. I'd spent years playing second fiddle to Ethan, swallowing my frustration, while my parents propped him up. This time, I was determined to protect my windfall and my peace. The next morning, I woke to a barrage of texts and voicemails. My mom's message was tearful. Lauren, we're just trying to keep the family together. Please call us. My dad's was sterner. You're making a mistake, shutting us out like this. Ethan's was the worst, a mix of charm and guilt. Sis, I know you're mad, but I'm your brother. Let's talk this out. The brewery's a game changer. I deleted them all and headed to work, my resolve hardening with every step at the office. I kept my head down, focusing on project deadlines while dodging my family's relentless calls. During a coffee break, I confided in Mia over the phone. They're acting like I owe them my money, I said, stirring my latte. Not one of them has asked what I want to do with it. Mia's voice was sharp. They've always treated Ethan like he's destined for greatness while you're just supposed to fall in line. Don't let them bully you. Her words stuck with me, fueling my determination to stay firm. That afternoon, I met with Ms. Carter, my financial advisor, again. She reviewed my plan, pay off my $55,000 student loans, set up a 6-month emergency fund, and invest the rest in a mix of stocks, bonds, and real estate. You're being smart, she said. But your family's pressure is a red flag. Have you considered legal protections? I hadn't, but her suggestion planted a seed. That evening, I got a text from my mom. We're worried about you, Lauren. Come to dinner tomorrow at 7. We'll figure out a fair plan for everyone. The assumption that my money was for everyone made my blood boil. I replied, I'm not discussing my finances with you. Please respect my decision. The response was immediate. A call from my dad. I let it go to voicemail. His message was laced with frustration. Lauren, this isn't how we raised you. Stop being stubborn and talk to us. I didn't call back. Instead, I researched security options for my apartment, feeling uneasy about their unannounced visit. I ordered a smart doorbell with a camera and scheduled a locksmith to change my locks the next day. The following morning, I took a personal day to handle some logistics. I visited the bank to double-check the security on my new account. The manager assured me it was locked down tight, requiring in-person ID verification for any transactions. We deal with high-net-worth clients all the time, she said. Your funds are safe. Next, I stopped by the investment firm to confirm the payout timeline 10 days until the $1.8 million hit my account. They reminded me to keep the oversized check from the press event safe, as it was a symbolic keepsake. I'd stashed it in a locked drawer at home, along with my investment paperwork, but I decided to move everything to my safe deposit box for extra precaution. When I got back to my apartment, I noticed something off. The front door was slightly ajar, and I could hear low voices inside. My heart pounded as I pushed it open, bracing for the worst. There in my living room were my parents and Ethan, standing around my coffee table. A small metal trash can. My trash can sat between them with flames flickering inside. My mom held a piece of paper over the fire, and I realized with a sickening jolt it was the oversized check from the press event. My dad turned to me, his face cold. If you won't help Ethan, you don't get to keep this. I lunged forward, but the check was already curling into ash. My mom stepped back, her expression a mix of defiance and guilt. Now we can talk about what's fair, she said. You'll have to reapply for the funds. For a moment I was speechless, the violation of my space and their audacity hitting me like a punch. How had they gotten in? Then it clicked. Last year when I'd sprained my ankle, I'd given them a spare key to help with errands. I never asked for it back. You broke into my apartment, I said, my voice low but steady, and burned what you thought was my payout. My dad squared his shoulders. Where are your parents? We're trying to make you see reason. Ethan looked uneasy but didn't speak. I stared at the smoldering ashes, and then, to my own surprise, I started to laugh. It was a small, disbelieving chuckle at first, growing into full-blown laughter. My parents exchanged confused glances, and Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "What's so funny?" my mom snapped. "You think this is a joke?" Wiping tears from my eyes, I caught my breath. "It's hilarious because you burned a prop. That check is just for show. It's not real money. The actual payout is electronic, already processing." I pulled out my phone and showed them an email from the investment firm, confirming the transfer was in progress. "You broke into my home and committed a crime for nothing." Their faces fell, the smugness replaced by shock. My dad shook his head. "You're lying. You're just saying that to get out of helping Ethan." I held up the email again. "It's being wired to secure account. No check exists to burn, you've lost it." My mom's voice wavered. "Lauren, we were just trying to what?" I cut her off. "Force me to fund Ethan's brewery by destroying my property. That's not love, that's manipulation." Ethan finally spoke, his tone defensive. "I didn't know they were doing this, Lauren. I just came to talk." I turned to him, years of resentment bubbling up. "You didn't stop them. You've always let them fight your battles, and I'm done being collateral damage." The silence was heavy, their plan unraveling in front of them. "All of you get out," I said, pointing to the door. "Now, or I call the police." My mom's eyes welled up. "Lauren, we're your family." "We made a mistake, but..." "A mistake?" I interrupted. "You trespassed and tried to sabotage my future. That's not a mistake, it's a choice." My dad tried to bluster. "Where are your parents?" "You can't just..." "I can," I said, opening the door wider. "Leave, or..." I reported this as breaking and entering. They gathered their things, my mom whispering apologies, my dad muttering about my attitude, and Ethan avoiding my eyes. As they left, Ethan paused. "You're being unfair." "I didn't ask for this." I shook my head. "Unfair is you expecting my money to fix your life. Go." Once they were gone, I called the locksmith, who arrived within the hour to install new locks. I also activated the smart doorbell, its camera now recording every visitor. Shaken but resolute, I called Mia. "They burned the fake check," I told her, still processing. "They thought it would force me to share." Mia was livid. "They broke in? That's unhinged? Are you okay?" I exhaled, surveying my apartment. "Yeah, weirdly. It's like the mask is off now. I see them for who they are," she insisted. "I stay at her place for a few days. Pack a bag." "I've got wine in a guest room." I agreed, grabbing essentials and heading to her condo across town. For the next 3 days, I stayed with Mia, going to work but avoiding my apartment. My family kept up their barrage of calls and texts, alternating between apologies and accusations. My mom sent a long message. "We're so sorry, Lauren. We were desperate for Ethan. Please, let's talk." My dad's was colder. "You're tearing this family apart over money." Ethan's was predictably self-focused. I wasn't part of their plan. "But you're punishing me anyway. Can we meet?" I responded to none of them, sticking to short replies like, "I need space." On the 4th day, I needed work files from my apartment, so I went back during my lunch break, assuming my family would be at work. I was wrong. As I unlocked the door, I heard movement inside. My pulse spiked, but I pushed forward, finding my parents in my living room again, this time rifling through my desk drawers. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded. My mom jumped, dropping a folder, while my dad held up a stack of papers, my investment documents. "We're trying to understand your plans," he said, unapologetic. "Since you won't talk to us." I snatched the papers from him. "This is my home. You're trespassing, again." My mom pleaded. "We're just worried you're making rash decisions." I pointed to the door. "Out, now, or I'm calling the cops." They left, grumbling, but not before my dad said, "You're choosing money over family." I locked the door behind them, my hands shaking as I called a lawyer. Miss Carter had recommended. The lawyer, Mr. Hayes, met me that afternoon. "Breaking and entering is serious," he said. So is attempted destruction of property, even if it was a symbolic check. You could press charges, but a restraining order might be enough to keep them at bay. I hesitated. I don't want to drag this to court, but I need them to stop. He nodded, drafting a cease and desist letter to send to my parents and Ethan, warning of legal action if they contacted me again without permission. I left his office feeling lighter, like I was finally taking control. That night, back at Mia's, I got a call from my Aunt Clara, my dad's sister who had always been a bit of an outsider in the family. I heard what happened, she said softly. Your mom's spinning it like you're the bad guy, but I want your side. I told her everything, the windfall, the barbecue, the check burning, the second break-in. She was quiet for a moment. Then said, They crossed a line, Lauren. I'm appalled. You don't owe them anything. Her support was a balm, a reminder that not everyone in my family was against me. They're telling everyone I'm selfish, I said. Clara sighed. Let them talk. You're doing what's right for you. That's enough. By the end of the week, I'd moved to a temporary rental in a secure building downtown, my mail forwarded to a PO box. The investment firm emailed to confirm the funds would hit my account in 3 days. As I unpacked in my new space, I felt a shift, not just financial, but emotional. I was done letting my family's expectations define me. The money was mine, but more importantly, so was my future. The second break-in at my apartment was the final straw. I'd spent my life navigating my family's favoritism toward Ethan, but their willingness to violate my space and try to control my $1.8 million windfall showed me who they really were. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore, I was fighting for my right to exist on my own terms. As I settled into my temporary rental in downtown Raleigh, a sleek one-bedroom with a doorman and keycard entry, I felt a strange mix of relief and resolve. The secure building was my fortress, a place where my parents and Ethan couldn't ambush me. My mail was forwarded to a PO box, and my new locks and smart doorbell at the old apartment ensured no more surprises. For the first time, I was drawing a hard line. My family didn't stop trying to reach me. The day after the second break-in, my phone buzzed with texts from my mom pleading, Lauren, we're so sorry. We were wrong. Can we talk? My dad's messages were less apologetic, more demanding. You're overreacting. We're family, let's fix this. Ethan's were the most manipulative, a long ramble about how he never meant for things to go this far and how his brewery dream was for all of us. I blocked their numbers temporarily, needing silence to think. Mia, my rock through this mess, agreed. They're scrambling because they know they screwed up, she said over coffee. At her place. Don't let them guilt you into caving. I nodded, but the weight of their betrayal still lingered. A dull ache I couldn't shake. That morning, I met with Mr. Hayes, the lawyer, to finalize the cease and desist letter. He'd drafted a firm warning to my parents and Ethan, citing their trespassing and attempted destruction of property as grounds for potential legal action. This should make them think twice, he said, sliding the document across his desk. If they violate it, we can pursue a restraining order. I signed it, my hand steady despite the knot in my chest. I don't want to escalate. I told him. I just want them to leave me alone, he nodded. This is a clear boundary. Most people back off when they see legal consequences. I left his office with a copy of the letter, mailed certified to their addresses that afternoon. It felt like closing a door I'd left cracked open for too long. Next, I visited the bank to triple-check the security on my account. The manager walked me through the protocols: 2-factor authentication, in-person ID verification, and alerts for any unusual activity. Your funds are as safe as it gets, she assured me. The investment firm called later that day, confirming the $1.8 million would hit my account in 2 days. I also contacted the firm to report my family's behavior, just in case they tried to impersonate me. The representative was sympathetic. We've seen this before with big payouts, she said. We won't share any details with anyone but you. With these safeguards in place, I could finally breathe a little easier. Back at my rental, I unpacked my few belongings, clothes, books, and a framed photo of me and Mia from a beach trip last summer. The stark reality of my estrangement hit me as I hung the photo on the wall. I'd always known my family favored Ethan, but I never imagined they'd go this far. I called Aunt Clara, needing her perspective. They're telling everyone you're cutting them off over money, she said, her voice heavy. But I've set a few cousins straight. What they did was wrong, Lauren. I told her about the cease and desist letter. Good for you, she said. You're not the villain here, no matter what they say. Her support was a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone. The next day, I returned to work, tying up loose ends on my projects. I decided to give notice soon, wanting to explore new paths once the money settled. During lunch, I got an unexpected call from my cousin Jake, Aunt Clara's son, who'd always been kind but distant. Mom told me what's going on, he said. I just want you to know I'm on your side. What your parents did breaking in, burning that check, it's messed up. I was touched by his call. Thanks, Jake, it's been rough. He hesitated, then added, they're saying you're being greedy, but I know you've always been. Fair. If you need to talk, I'm here. We chatted for a bit, and I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I could rebuild connections with family who respected my boundaries. That evening, I got an email from the bank. The $1.8 million had been deposited. I stared at the balance on my app, the numbers surreal. I called Mia, who squealed through the phone. We're celebrating tonight. I'm bringing champagne. She arrived an hour later with bubbly and Thai takeout, and we toasted on my balcony overlooking Raleigh's skyline. To freedom, Mia said, raising her glass. And to you finally putting yourself first, I added, clinking hers. As we ate, I confessed my mixed feelings. I'm thrilled about the money, but I keep thinking about how my family could have just been happy for me. Mia set down her fork. They showed you who they are. That's not your fault. You're allowed to enjoy this without their baggage. Over the next few days, I started implementing my financial plan with Miss Carter's guidance. First, I paid off my $55,000 student loans, the confirmation email bringing tears to my eyes. No more monthly payments eating into my budget. Next, I set up a $50,000 emergency fund and allocated the rest to investments, index funds, a real estate trust, and a small portion for riskier stocks. I also began house hunting, wanting a place of my own, a modest home with a garden, maybe near a park. Nothing flashy, just mine, Miss Carter approved. You're building a stable future, she sighed. That's rarer than you think for sudden wealth. My family's attempts to contact me didn't stop, despite the cease and desist letter. I got a forwarded letter from my mom, handwritten and tear-stained. Lauren, we're heartbroken. We acted out of love for Ethan, but we see now it was wrong. Please forgive us. Ethan emailed, claiming he'd cut ties with our parents' plan and begging to meet. I didn't respond, but I saved the messages in case I needed them for legal reasons. Mr. Hayes suggested documenting everything. If they escalate, you'll want proof of their persistence, he said. I also installed a security system at my rental, complete with cameras and an alarm, just to be safe. A week later, I met Aunt Clara for lunch at a cozy diner. She updated me on the family drama. Your parents are telling everyone you're isolating yourself, but most people see through it, she said. Ethan's brewery idea fell apart. He couldn't find investors. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it faded when she added, your parents took out a second mortgage to cover his debts from the food truck. I stared at her, stunned. They're risking their retirement? Clara nodded grimly. They think he'll pay them back someday. I tried to talk sense into them, but you know how they are. I shook my head, torn between pity and frustration. Their enabling had consequences, but I wasn't responsible for fixing them. That conversation stuck with me. I didn't want my parents to suffer, despite everything. I called Miss Carter to discuss setting up a small trust for their retirement. Maybe in a few years when the dust settled. It's generous of you to consider, she said. But make sure it's a one-time gift with no strings attached. I agreed, tabling the idea for now. In the meantime, I focused on my own life. I gave notice at work, agreeing to stay 4 weeks to train my replacement. My boss was shocked but supportive, assuming I'd inherited money, a white lie I let slide. I also started volunteering with a local nonprofit teaching financial literacy to teens. something I'd always cared about. Helping kids understand budgeting and credit felt like paying forward my own hard-earned lessons. One evening, as Mia and I binge-watched a new series at my rental, I got a text from Jake. Heard you're doing okay. Proud of you for standing up to the chaos. Let's grab coffee soon. I smiled, texting back, definitely. Rebuilding with family like Jake and Clara felt possible, but it would be on my terms. As I scrolled through house listings later, I realized the money wasn't just about security. It was about freedom. Freedom to choose my home, my work, my relationships. My family had tried to take that from me, but I'd fought back. And for the first time, I felt like I was winning. The weeks after moving into my secure downtown Raleigh rental were a whirlwind of change. With my $1.8 million windfall now safely in my account, I was building a life that felt like mine, free from my family's demands and manipulations. The cease and desist letter had quieted my parents and Ethan, but I knew their silence was temporary. The betrayal of their break-ins and the burning of my ceremonial check still stung, but it had also ignited a fire in me. I was done being the overlooked daughter, the one expected to sacrifice for Ethan's endless dreams. This was my time to define my future, and I wasn't looking back. I started therapy to process the emotional fallout. My therapist, Dr. Ellis, was a calm, no-nonsense woman who helped me untangle the guilt and anger I felt toward my family. "You're not cutting them off out of spite," she said during our first session. "You're protecting your well-being. That's a strength, not a failure." Her words were a lifeline, helping me see that setting boundaries wasn't about rejecting love but demanding respect. I also leaned on Mia, who kept me grounded with her blunt honesty. Over pizza one night, she said, "Your parents and Ethan think they can guilt you into submission. Don't let them rewrite the narrative." She was right. Their apologies, when they came, always carried a hint of entitlement, as if I owed them forgiveness for their mistakes. Financially, I was moving forward with Miss Carter's guidance. My student loans were gone, a $55,000 weight lifted from my shoulders. I'd set up an emergency fund and diversified my investments, ensuring long-term stability. House hunting was my next priority. I wanted a cozy 3-bedroom home with a garden, nothing extravagant, just a space that felt like home. I toured a few places in quiet Raleigh neighborhoods, falling in love with a craftsman-style house near a park. It had hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and a backyard perfect for morning coffee. I made an offer, and within a week it was mine, paid in full. Standing in the empty living room, I felt a surge of pride. This was mine, earned through my own luck and choices, not my family's approval. At work, I was wrapping up my final weeks. My colleagues were curious about my sudden departure, but I stuck to my story of an inheritance. Training my replacement felt bittersweet. I'd loved my job, but the money gave me freedom to explore new paths. I'd been volunteering more with the financial literacy nonprofit, teaching teens about budgeting and debt. Their enthusiasm and their stories of wanting to break free from their own family's financial struggles hit close to home. One girl, a high school senior, told me, "I don't want to end up like my parents, always stressed about bills." I nodded, thinking of my own years scraping by. "You're already ahead by learning this now," I told her. Those moments felt more rewarding than any paycheck. My family's attempts to contact me persisted, though they were less frequent. My mom sent emails, each one a mix of apology and subtle manipulation. "We miss you, Lauren. We know we messed up, but Ethan's struggling. Can we work this out?" Ethan's messages were more direct. "I'm trying to get my life together, sis. I wasn't behind what Mom and Dad did. Can we talk?" I didn't respond, but I saved everything for my lawyer, Mr. Hayes. He'd advised me to keep a paper trail in case their behavior escalated again. "They're testing your boundaries," he said during a check-in. "Stay firm." I also upgraded my security, adding cameras to my new house and linking them to an app on my phone. The break-ins had left me paranoid, but I refused to live in fear. Aunt Clara remained my anchor in the family storm. We met for coffee every week, and she kept me updated without pushing me to reconcile. "Your parents are telling everyone you're being unreasonable," she said one afternoon, stirring her latte. But most of the family thinks they crossed a line. She paused, then added, Ethan's brewery plan is dead. He's working at a bar downtown now, trying to pay off his debts. I felt a twinge of sympathy for him, but it faded when I remembered his role in the pressure campaign. And my parents? I asked. Clara sighed. They're struggling with that second mortgage. Your dad's working extra hours at the store to cover it. I shook my head, frustrated. Their choice to bail Ethan out again wasn't my burden. But it still hurt to hear. That conversation led me to a tough decision. I didn't want my parents to lose their home, despite everything. I called Miss Carter to discuss setting up a small trust for them, not now, but maybe in a year or two when emotions weren't so raw. It's a kind impulse, she said, but make it a one-time gift, legally structured so they can't expect more. I agreed, feeling a mix of compassion and caution. I also started thinking about broader ways to use my wealth. The nonprofit work had sparked an idea, a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. I'd been scraping through with loans and side jobs, and I wanted to make it easier for others. Miss Carter helped me set up a $100,000 fund, partner with a local community college. When the first recipients were announced, I got thank you letters from students, one of whom wrote, "This means I can focus on school instead of working nights." I cried reading it, feeling like I was making a real difference. Reconnecting with extended family was slow but promising. Jake, my cousin, invited me to a low-key barbecue at his place, assuring me my parents and Ethan weren't invited. I went, nervous but hopeful, and found a warm reception from cousins and aunts who'd heard my side from Clara. "You don't owe them your money," my cousin Sarah said, passing me a beer. What they did was wild. Their support felt like a bridge back to family, one built on mutual respect. I started to see a future where I could have family ties without sacrificing my boundaries. One evening, I got an unexpected email from Ethan. Unlike his earlier messages, this one felt different. "Lauren, I've been thinking a lot about how I've acted. I was wrong to expect your money to fix my problems. I'm working at the bar now, and it's humbling, but I'm trying to stand on my own. I'm sorry for everything. I miss you. If you're ever ready to talk, I'm here." I read it several times, searching for the usual manipulation. It seemed genuine, but I wasn't ready to trust yet. I replied carefully, "Thanks for your message, Ethan. I appreciate the apology. I need more time, but I'm glad you're finding your way. Take care." His response was simple. "I get it. I'll wait." It was a small step, but it left me cautiously optimistic that maybe someday we could rebuild something. As I settled into my new house, I started exploring hobbies I'd never had time for. I signed up for a pottery class, finding joy in shaping clay into lopsided bowls. I also began gardening, planting herbs and flowers in my backyard, learning through trial and error. These small acts, creating, nurturing, felt like reclaiming parts of myself I'd buried under years of survival mode. Mia noticed the change. "You're lighter," she said one night, helping me paint my living room a soft sage green. "It's like you're finally living for you." I smiled, brushing paint off my hands. "I think I am." The money had changed my circumstances, but the real transformation was internal. I'd spent so long feeling like I had to earn my family's approval, always coming up short against Ethan's shine. Now, I was learning to value myself without their validation. Dr. Ellis put it best. "Your worth isn't tied to what you give others, it's in who you are." That perspective shifted how I saw my wealth, too. It wasn't just a windfall. It was a tool to build a life aligned with my values: security, purpose, connection. One night, as I sat on my porch with a glass of wine, watching fireflies dance in the yard, I reflected on the past few months. The betrayal had been painful, but it had forced me to confront truths I'd avoided. My family's actions had shown me their priorities, but they'd also shown me my own strength. I wasn't the same Lauren who tiptoed around their expectations. I was someone who could say no, who could choose herself, who could build a life that felt whole. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt like I was walking it on my own terms. A year after my $1.8 million windfall hit my account, I stood in the backyard of my new Raleigh home, surrounded by blooming lavender and rosemary. I'd planted myself. The craftsman-style house, with its wraparound porch and hardwood floors, was more than a purchase. It was a symbol of my independence, a space carved out by my choices, not my family's demands. The journey from that life-changing stock payout to this moment had been a roller coaster of betrayal, growth, and self-discovery. My parents' and Ethan's attempts to control my fortune culminating in their break-ins and the burning of a ceremonial check had forced me to see them clearly. But more importantly, it had forced me to see myself. I wasn't the overlooked daughter anymore. I was Lauren, the author of my own life. The past year had been a masterclass in boundaries. Therapy with Dr. Ellis helped me navigate the guilt and anger that lingered after cutting contact with my parents and Ethan. "You're not abandoning them," she'd say. "You're choosing yourself, and that's a radical act for someone raised to prioritize others." Her words echoed as I rebuilt my life. I'd paid off my student loans, bought my house, and set up a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, which had already helped 10 kids afford tuition. Volunteering with the financial literacy nonprofit gave me purpose, teaching teens the skills I had learned the hard way. One boy, a junior, told me, "I'm saving for college so I don't drown in debt like my brother." I smiled, remembering my own diner shifts to cover textbooks. "You're already ahead," I told him, feeling a spark of pride. My family's silence after the cease and desist letter didn't last. My parents sent occasional emails, alternating between apologies and defensiveness. My mom wrote, "We're trying to understand, Lauren. We acted out of love, but we see now it hurt you. Can we start over?" My dad's were less contrite. "You're still our daughter. Don't let money ruin our family." Ethan's messages were the hardest to read, each one tinged with a sincerity I wanted to believe but couldn't fully trust. "I'm working hard at the bar, sis. I know I messed up. I'd love to see you." I kept my responses short and neutral, like, "I appreciate that. I need more time." Dr. Ellis helped me see that their words, while softer, still carried expectations. "They're testing the waters," she said. "You don't owe them reconciliation on their terms." Reconnecting with extended family was a brighter spot. Aunt Claire became my weekly coffee buddy, offering updates without judgment. "Your parents are struggling with that mortgage," she told me one day at a diner. "They're still convinced Ethan's one big idea away from success." I sighed, frustrated but not surprised. "They're risking their retirement for him." Again, Clara nodded. "I told them to let him figure it out, but they won't listen." My cousin Jake and a few others reached out too, inviting me to small gatherings where my parents and Ethan weren't welcome. At one barbecue, Jake pulled me aside. "You're doing the right thing, standing your ground. I wish I'd been braver when my dad tried to control my career." His words felt like permission to keep my boundaries firm. Ethan's bar job turned out to be a turning point. Aunt Clara mentioned he'd been promoted to assistant manager and was taking a community college course on business finance. "He's actually budgeting," she said, raising an eyebrow. "First time I've seen him try." 6 months after our estrangement, I agreed to meet him for a coffee at a neutral cafe. I was nervous, my hands wrapped around a latte as he walked in, looking different, less cocky, more grounded. "You look good," he said, studying me. "Happy?" I nodded. "I am. You?" He gave a small smile. "Getting there. The bar's not glamorous, but it's steady." We talked cautiously at first, skirting the past, but he brought it up. "I'm sorry, Lauren. Not just for the check thing, I didn't know they'd do that, but for always leaning on you and Mom and Dad. I took it for granted." His voice cracked, and I saw a glimpse of the brother I'd loved as a kid, before favoritism drove a wedge between us. I took a deep breath. "Thank you." It hurt, feeling like my win was just a solution to your problems. He nodded, eyes down. "I see that now. I was desperate, but that's no excuse." We didn't fix everything that day, but it was a start. We've met a few times since, slowly rebuilding something new, not the old dynamic where I was the giver and he was the taker, but a relationship based on mutual respect. My parents are a different story. Their apologies still feel like negotiations, as if I owe them access to my life. I've exchanged a few emails, but I'm not ready for more. Dr. Ellis says, that's okay. Some relationships need time. Others need distance, she told me. You get to decide. The money transformed my life, but not in the ways I'd expected. It wasn't about luxury cars or designer clothes, though I did splurge on a pottery wheel for my new hobby. It was about freedom. I quit my job after training my replacement, taking a part-time consulting gig to stay busy while I explored what came next. My scholarship fund grew, now supporting 20 students, and I partnered with a nonprofit to expand our workshops. I also started restoring old furniture, turning my garage into a workshop where I sanded and stained tables between gardening sessions. Mia, ever my cheerleader, joked, "You're like a Pinterest board come to life." But it wasn't about aesthetics. It was about creating something that was mine. One evening, as Mia and I planned our second New Zealand trip, this time with a detour to Fiji, I got a text from Aunt Clara. Your parents asked for your address. I didn't give it. They're talking about therapy, believe it or not. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. Maybe they're finally seeing the pattern, I told Mia. She shrugged. Maybe, but don't hold your breath. She was right, but the possibility of change, however slim, left me hopeful. I'd learned that hope didn't mean dropping my guard. It meant trusting myself to handle whatever came. As I stood in my backyard, pruning lavender under a pink sunset, I thought about the past year. The money had been a catalyst, but the real wealth was in my growth. I'd learned to value myself, to say no without guilt, to build a life that reflected my heart. The betrayal had been a gut punch, but it had also been a gift, revealing truths I'd ignored and pushing me to claim my worth. I wasn't defined by my bank account or my family's expectations. I was Lauren, flawed, resilient, and finally free. For anyone reading this, I hope my story resonates. If you've ever struggled to set boundaries or felt invisible in your own family, know that choosing yourself is hard but worth it. The peace on the other side is unlike anything else. I'd love to hear your experiences. Have you faced pressure like this? What helped you stand firm? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if my journey speaks to you, give it a like. Subscribing keeps these stories coming, and I'd be grateful for your support. Here's to writing our own endings, no matter how messy the start.